Okay, this first one, 8 comes out and x comes out. How many of you started with that? Good start. All right, if you haven't already, check with the person next to you on what they put in the parenthesis. Parker, what did you have?
2x.
Yup, because this totals up to 16x squared and minus 1. Very good. If you multiply this back out, it gives you this. This is a little different kind of factoring. It's just 2 sets of parentheses. Rack your brain for the 3 steps. First, it's x and x. Second step, should it be plus plus, minus minus, or plus minus? The last step is what 2 numbers go here and here. All right, I'm going to pause for a second while you try to factor that one and then compare with the kid behind you. So here's a suggestion, x plus 3, oops, I'm sorry, I was writing with the highlighter, plus 3 and minus 8. Well, right off the bat, I see that they multiplied a negative 24, so it's got that going for it. But how do I check it? Well, you go x times x is x squared, and then the outside one and the inside one are what it's all about. A reminder, it's all about the outside and the inside. And do these 2 make the middle? That's what it's all about. And those do add up to negative 5, so you've got it. X plus 3, x minus 8. How about this last one? I just know this pattern, and I don't know. You got an answer?
I got x plus 5, x minus 5.
You are correct, sir. If you guys haven't done this in a while, maybe you forgot that pattern, but it's really not too bad. 5 times 5 makes 25, and there's 1 negative. It's what it has to be. And if you're like, but there's no like middle term, it's because the outside and the inside are the exact opposites of each other. So if I give you another one like that, you should be able to do this like the back of your hand. Parker, what do you say? X plus 4, x minus 4. You guys catching on to this? What if it had been x squared minus 25? You should be able to, boom, I know it. Got it, Taylor?
X plus 25 and x minus 25.
Close. 4 times 4 makes 16. You got to take 2 things. You can't use 25.
25.
Yeah. I think I do what you meant. All right. So that's factoring. So how do we factor things that are harder? Well, the first thing you do is you look for something that's called a GCF. That's combining those 2 skills. So you go, there's an X in everything. You factor it out. Would you please write inside there what's left when I take out an X? I will let the dice of destiny tell me who to call on. What's inside there? The row is row 5. The person is the 3rd person. Truckee. Dice of destiny, like you. What goes right here?
X squared.
Good. What goes right here?
8x.
You are correct. And what goes right here?
12.
Yep. And then you can factor it again. Don't forget about that first x. I bring it down right away. And then you just got to do the same little thing again. X and x. That should be like easy. Wouldn't you agree it's got to be plus and plus? That's easy. Just get through the easy stuff. And then you just figure out something that multiplies to 12. Jay, can you give me some options of things that would multiply to 12? 6 and 2 do. And 6 and 2 also happen to make an 8. So when I do the outside, 2x, inside, 6x, look at that. It makes 8x. That's what I wanted. So that's the answer. Final answer has that x in front, though. Don't forget that. All right. Well, we finally come to the kind, I think we can skip this one. It's just another practice of the same exact thing. We finally come to the big one, the new thing for today. Up until this moment, it was all review, but now please listen, because this is completely different and it stumps a lot of smart kids. One of my colleagues was telling me about a kid who's one of the smarter kids in his class, but just was like, wanted him to explain it 4 times because just could not understand it, okay? I think most of you guys are going to get it, but there'll be a few of you that just have this block that you'll be like, I don't get what's going on. Divide and conquer. It's a saying. They say that Alexander the Great, who was one of the best military generals in history, he was really good at battles, and one of the best things he would do is divide up the army. And he would take and fake out the enemy and get his whole army to go against half of the other guy's army. Do you get how that's a huge advantage? If half your army isn't even in it and you're over here, he would did his whole army against half the other guy's army, and he'd kick their butts. And then he could take on the other half of his army with his whole army. So that's an awesome strategy called divide and conquer. Well, we're dividing this up into two problems because you can't factor it all at once. I mean, you can, but it's super complicated. So act like this part of the problem doesn't exist. Act like it's not there. Everybody factor the first part. Just the first part. What's the GCF? The thing that factors out.
X.
There's more than just an x. It's close. X squared. Hatis, what's left if I take out an x squared? Just x. There's just 3. Because, look, that'll make x to the third. That'll make 3x squared. Hey, I factored it. Do you see how it wasn't that hard to just factor half of it? Okay, now I'm going to go factor the other half, the part I was ignoring. Just factor that now. Do you get how they both have a 2 in them? The only thing that's kind of weird here is we need to say plus 2. Because it is a positive 2 that you're factoring out, right? And then, Eddie, what goes inside here?
X plus 3.
Yep. Most people, that's not the hard part. Most people get this up to here, they're fine. Because, like, anybody can factor the easy beginning and the easy end. But it's putting it all together that freaks people out. Here's the way I want you to think of it. If I just asked you to look at this part I highlighted in pink, and this part I'm highlighting in blue, what do they have in common? What do they both have? Sage. They both have an x plus 3, so that x plus 3 goes here. One of the things that freaks people out is they feel like they should be squared. But we don't do that. When we factor out a 2 from this and this, we didn't make it 2 squared in the front. So no, it's not x plus 3 squared, it's just x plus 3. And then the cool part is, we just put what's left when I take out an x plus 3. I'm going to show you, if I put an x plus 3 on both sides, I can show you this cancels and this cancels, so it's really obvious what's left. X squared plus 2. And that is factored all the way, and it's the hardest factoring problem that you've ever done. Okay, so what was that process again? It's called divide and conquer. The official name isn't that. I just like to use that historical, like, teach you a little bit about history. Another great American quote is Abraham Lincoln said, "A house divided against itself," like the United States, "can't be divided against itself, or it will not stand." So our country was divided north-south, and if we'd have stayed that way, we'd have ended up splitting apart into 2 countries, probably. And so basically we had to fight it out. Well, divide and conquer, you don't want to get divided because that hurts you. Well, this will divide it up and makes it a lot weaker. It makes it a lot easier to factor this, and then you factor that. And then the tricky part at the end is taking the thing that was in common and putting it in front and factoring it out. All right, so what are the solutions? X equals negative 3, and that's weird. X squared plus 2 equals 0. X squared equals negative 2. Whoa. How can you square something and have it come out negative? You can't. So this one's, I don't even know why they're doing this, but we did do this at one point. It's plus and minus I root 2. Boy, that's been a while since you've had to do that. I don't think we would make you get that answer, but do you remember that when there's a square root of a negative, that gave you an I? That's why there's an I. And the reason there's two answers is because it was squared. So this is technically the absolute value of x, which then gives you two answers, plus I root 2 and minus I root 2. That was pretty brutal way to end. All right, let's just do that factor by grouping thing. I call it divide and conquer. It's important that that negative goes on the 8 when you're dividing. You're dividing your country up into two parts. We'll pause for a second and give this a shot. Let's see if you were able to do it. Some kids already have got it. I guarantee it. They knew that this was x squared and then x plus 3. And they knew this was minus 8 and this is x plus 3. That was the fairly easy part. And then knowing that they both have an x plus 3, you probably put that in front. I hope you did. That's the hardest kind. And then I like to just think of it as you're dividing by x plus 3 on both parts. And this drops out and this drops out, making it really obvious that it's x squared minus 8. Raise your hand if you got there before I did. Sweet, you learned it that fast. Now, some people do get a mental block on these and they just don't understand what's happening. But looks like you guys are catching on. Yes, ma'am.
When I took the negative 8 out of the negative 24,
Yep.
I got x minus 3.
Okay, but think of it this way. If that really was x minus 3 there, let's show how it can't be that. If I put this times this, I get negative 8x. Do you get, if you did negative 8 times the negative 3, you'd get positive 24? Okay, so it can't be negative, it had to be positive 3. All right, and now my answers, that one's easy, x equals negative 3. But can you solve this one? Set it equal to 0, x squared equals 8. What's next? Quick, what's next? How do you get rid of the squared? Say it if you know it. Square root it. And then this is absolute value of x, which will give us two answers. The square root of 8 and what else? Come on, you can do this. Do you know? Anybody know? Okay, when you do this, it gives you two answers. Plus and minus the square root of 8. Could you simplify it even further? Yeah, but I probably would have just given you credit for this. Yes, technically that's 2 root 2. In case you forgot. On a test, you probably would have to finish this and go root 4, root 2, that's really 2 root 2. So the plus and minus in the front, plus and minus 2 root 2. You are in higher algebra, so it's supposed to get a little complicated here and there. All right, let's do one more, and I'm just going to be quiet and see if you can get it without my help. All right, so let's try this one together. Would you agree after the 2x came out, all the numbers got a little smaller in there, but what's left still has to get factored, and there's something in common in both of those? Would you agree that they don't have a 2, so I can't factor out the 2? So what can I factor out?
X.
Yes, but isn't there more than just one x that can factor out?
Yeah.
X squared factors out. And then, what would have to go here where I'm putting the dots?
X.
Yep. And then the other spot?
X minus 2.
That's it. And then on the other one, you can bet it's probably going to be an x minus 2. But Eddie, what do you think factored out of the other side?
Negative 2.
And then what did you have left?
X minus 2.
You got it. And when these are the same, you know you're probably doing it right. They go out to the front. And then what's left is these guys. And then I write that on the test and I'm like, sweet, I know I did it right. What did I forget? Why isn't this the right answer? See, even looking at it, most of you guys aren't seeing it, but you'll see it as soon as somebody says it, you'll be like, oh, Parker? You forgot the 2x that you factored out at the beginning. If you don't have that, it won't make the original problem. You need that 2x. You can't just throw it away. So that is factored all the way. And what are the answers? X equals 0, X equals 2, and I'll do this one in speed version for you. X squared minus 2 equals 0. X squared equals 2. Square root, X, absolute value, is the square root of 2. But then you got to finish it, and you go, oh yeah, the absolute value thing means two answers. X equals plus and minus the square root of 2. There's my 1, 2, 3, 4 answers. And that is some serious math. Grab a random person off the street. Really. And ask them to factor that. Almost nobody would be able to do that. If I grabbed a random one of you, I think at least half of you could probably pull that off. Maybe by the time we take the test, almost all of you. What was the first thing? We took out the 2x, that's called the GCF. And then it was easier to factor because all the numbers were smaller. Then we found this awesome situation where this and this were the same and they could go to the front. At least 3/4 of you forgot to bring down the 2x. I get it. And then this is just the things that are left. They came from here and here. That is the hardest factoring you've ever done. It'll be on the test. The test is Wednesday. So that means you got Monday and Tuesday. Where Monday we might learn a little bit more. Tuesday's all review. Wednesday's the test. Okay? I know it's a little bit scary, but you do have several days to make this really stick and make sure you've got this. So what's the way to do that? The homework. There is a Schoology quiz. All I have to ask is that you start it. It's a Friday. If you want to make yourself do it later, fine, but open it and get started on it. And that's all I have for the video for today.